Hi everyone. Today I'm going to do a simple presentation on how to study more effectively. This presentation will help all secondary students from Form 1 to Form 4, and the points that will also be discussed may also be useful to college students. How can I study more effectively? Some of us have concerns that we study but we don't know the best way to study effectively. Some of us are worried that we don't really know the best ways to study. Others are concerned that we can study so hard, yet we are not able to attain good grades. While some of us also think that we can study the same way we study biology or history. Definitely, it is not possible to study the same way, or the approach that we use to study sciences and humanities cannot be the same. So we have so many concerns, and we want to ask ourselves, what is the right way to study? To answer this question, and before we go into our presentation today, I want us to take a few minutes, just 2 minutes, to write down all your worries or issues about studying. First things first, let us learn the basics. What is to study? To study means to learn new information, formulate it into knowledge, and apply it in order to develop new skills. Now, what are the study skills? Study skills are strategies that are used to help you improve your learning ability. There are different approaches or study skills that we're going to learn today, from basics to more comprehensive way to study more effectively. Simple study skills. Pay attention in class. Most of us attend our class sessions, whether face-to-face or virtual classes, and we don't pay attention to these sessions. It is very important that we pay attention, because we will also be able to retain some of the information during the class sessions. Take good notes. First, your handwriting is very important while taking good notes. Taking good notes means you'll be able to revise your own notes later on after the class sessions. Taking good notes means you'll be motivated to do revision through your notes. You will not actually be bored reading your own notes. Number 3, you will need to keep organized notebook for writing your notes. Whether during the class or outside the class, you need to keep an organized book for revision purposes. Then you also need to know the purpose of each assignment that you're given in class. These assignments, some of them are given to you basically for practicing purposes, basically to enable you do your own research and come up with a solution or come up with your own good notes. Sometimes we need to ask questions in class. Ask if you don't really know. Ask a genuine question, because that is the only way you can actually be able to learn. Then it is very important that we study a little bit each day. We don't need to study so much in one day. Our brain is not able to capture everything at the same time. So it is very important that we are consistent. We don't need to cram before a test. That is why we find most of us actually study just a few days before the test or before the final examination. That is not the best way to study. You need to study every day, and consistency is very important. Review your work every week. That means as you study and as you plan how you're going to study, it is very important that you actually review your work. You can actually review your work on weekly basis. You can also review your work on monthly basis or trimester basis or termly basis. So that way you will actually be able to understand better and be able to get all that you have learned into your mind. Plan your time and place of study. We don't just go anywhere to study. It is very important we adjust to the time that we study. Some of us can actually see ourselves study better during the night or during the day. If you find yourself able to study at night, then utilize the time to study at night. If you find yourself studying during the day, then better plan your study time during the day. Another important aspect is to take short breaks during our study sessions. That is why even in school we have sessions or classes and we have some breaks. Like we have a break in between during the morning sessions and a break just after the morning session and before the afternoon session. Those breaks are very important to make you refresh yourself and also to relax a bit before you go to the next session. The last point which I have for you today is think positive and have a positive mindset. Now, while studying, you will find yourself that you like some certain subjects and you dislike others. Now, having a positive mindset means you'll actually be able to develop interest in those subjects that you're not doing so well in class. So having a positive attitude or positive mindset will enable you do well because you will also put in more effort in those subjects that you don't do well in class. Good study skills require self-discipline. Self-discipline means taking control of your feelings, taking control of yourself and your weaknesses. That means if you're studying, you need to actually discipline yourself. You need to actually follow the set targets that you have set yourself, the goals that you want to achieve. That means if you want to study a particular subject at a certain time, you ensure that you actually do it as per your set targets. That will actually enable you achieve your end term goals. It is also very important that you examine your old study habits. Now, if you are studying probably 30 minutes in a day and now you have set yourself a target of 2 hours in a day, then you need to actually examine your new habits as well. Are you able to progress from your old study habits to new study habits? That is the only way you can actually progress and be able to do well in school. That way you'll actually be able to achieve your targets and even surpass your targets having been self-disciplined. There are different ways of studying. Everyone studies in a different way. One may be comfortable to study at night while others may be comfortable to study during the day. Therefore, everyone has to choose his method that will actually work for himself or herself. Where do I start? First, we need to create a study plan. Now, there's something called the 40 hours rule. Basically, our jobs are 40 hours a week, assuming that you work 8 hours for 5 days, from 8 to 5, Monday to Friday. Now, if we attend our classes, assuming this is high school classes, our sessions most likely would actually be 30 hours per week. So if you're to work 40 hours a week and learn 30 hours in a week, it means you have a difference of 10 good hours. Those 10 good hours can actually be transformed into study hours. That means you can actually convert the 10 hours into 5 days a week, and that would actually make 2 hours per day of study. That means if you're to study Monday to Friday, ensure that you have at least 2 hours per day to study your subjects. How do you make a timetable? Basically, you look at the sessions that you have during the day. If you are a day person, make sure you fit in the 2 hours. It could actually be a split of 2 subjects or 3 subjects of 40 minutes. If it is 2 subjects, that means you'll actually do 1 hour and 1 hour for 2 subjects. If it is 3 subjects, then you can actually do 40 minutes and you'll actually be able to attain the 2-hour session in a day. So for you to be able to set your personal timetable, that means you look at the sessions that you have during the day, make sure you have some breaks and set your timetable in such a way that you can actually be able to study without getting tired. Next, if you are a night person, then it means you can actually set your time after the day's session. Make sure you set the 1 hour per subject or 40 minutes per subject, and ensure you have some few minutes break in between. Number 2, very important, is to create a study zone. How should that study zone look like? If you can look at the two pictures, you need to have a room or a study zone that is well lit. There are no distractions whatsoever. You need to feel comfortable. You need to have a table and a seat that will actually make you very comfortable. You need to have all your necessary stationaries or supplies that you actually need to use. If it is a pen, if it is a pencil, if it is a calculator, you need to have all that. It is very important that you actually study at the same place, same time when you are making your studies. That means you need to follow your timetable, and if it is a subject that you need to study at that particular time, ensure that you find yourself in that particular study zone. That will actually help you remember more and retain more when you are studying. Once you have created your personal study timetable and created a study zone, the next thing to do is actually now to use the study approach. Studying approach, here we have the SQ3R approach. Now, this is an acronym that stands for survey, question, read, recite, and review. If we want to look at each one of them and what it means, then you will actually be able to understand each and every of these points better. To survey means to actually look over the chapters and topics that you are actually about to study. Now, when you are surveying, it means you just look, you just have an overview of the topics and subtopics that you want to study. Then, from these topics and subtopics, ask the questions that you want to answer while you want to read this particular topic. That means if it is growth and development in biology, ask yourself, what is growth? What is development? Then you will actually be able to answer those questions after you have surveyed by going through the next steps. That is to read. As you read, think about answering the questions you came up with and what might come next in the next reading. That means as you read, you're actually answering the questions that you actually raised. Now, the next thing to do is to recite. Read and keep on reading. After reading a section, ask yourself questions about what you have read. You can actually take notes about the reading that you're actually doing. That means as you read, you set yourself notes that you'll actually be able to recite and later on review. After reciting, that means you should also be able to review the work that you have actually covered. Reviewing basically means covering up what you have learned and actually mentioning the key phrases or terms that you have actually learned and whether you can actually recall them. So it is very important you actually use the SQ3R approach while studying. This approach will actually fit in well if you are consistent in your study. And as I said earlier, it is very important that every time you study, you ensure that you set aside time for reviewing what you have studied. This review can actually come in later in the week, that is weekly review. You can also have it as monthly review or in a semester or termly reviews. As you study, it is very important that you take notes. Now, notes taking involves 3 stages. There are those sessions where you need to take notes before the class. That means you need to review your notes from previous lessons. Try to complete all the assignments that you have. Make sure you have done all the exercises that you were given and on a timely manner. The next thing to do is to take notes during the class. Most of the time, the class teacher or the facilitator will actually give the notes, and during the session, the same teacher will actually be able to give some explanations that are not covered in the notes. Make sure you concentrate. Make sure you listen to the signal statements that the lecturer or the teacher is actually giving. Like for instance here, the lecturer or the teacher may emphasize, remember this, remember to add this, be sure. Such are examples or phrases that most lecturers use. Then it is very important to write quickly but precisely. That means you need to use shorthand. You need to actually create your own shorthand words that you can actually understand yourself. Put question marks where you don't understand. Make sure you are also able to raise these questions so that the lecturer or the teacher can be able to address such questions. The last stage here is to rewrite your own notes after the class. That means the lecturer or the teacher has given you the notes, but also as you study, remember to use the SQ3R approach. While you read and recite, create your own notes. Create your own notes by using abbreviations or acronyms that you can actually be able to remember and retain such points. Answer any questions that you had in your notes. Remember, you had placed question marks on places where you didn't understand while you were writing your notes. Now it is time for you to actually address or answer these questions if you are not able to address these questions earlier on. Some of the students will actually ask, what if I cannot concentrate? As I said earlier, most of us are different, and sometimes our concentration span does not last for so long. So here we have some strategies that we can actually improve on our concentration and concentration span. Number one, clear your mind. That means you need to switch your mind from what you have done before and to switch your mind to what you want to do now. That means you want to study now. So you need to switch from what you have been doing to what you want to do right now. Also remember, your attitude matters. Remember to have the right attitude. Why? Because if it is subject that you don't like, you will actually tend not to go for that particular session. You would not want to study that particular subject because you don't like it. So that means you need to have the right attitude. As you clear your mind, remember, you go for what you have set in your timetable in terms of the subject that you want to study. Number two, focus. Focus on what you are studying. Remember, if you are studying while writing the notes, you will actually be able to concentrate and focus on the subject that you are studying. Number three, switch subjects frequently. That means if you have a 2-hour sessions of study, have breaks in between. You can actually split the 2 hours into 2 subjects of 1 hour or 3 subjects of 40 minutes each. Remember to balance your study. Balance in terms of putting all the subjects in terms of those that you like and those that you don't like. Don't put 2 subjects or 3 subjects you want to study at the same time and all the 3 subjects are not likable to you. Number 4, do not allow any disruptions. Keep your phones and any disruptions away. Remember, while you are studying, you need to be seated and don't move up and down. Otherwise, that will also disrupt you and also you will not be able to concentrate. Number 5, consistency. It is very important that you actually are consistent when you are studying. Remember to follow your study timetable. The timings are very important. That way, you will actually be able to concentrate and you will actually be able to long for the study that you will always set ahead of time. Number 6, Last one but not least, remember to get enough rest or sleep. Remember to take short breaks. If you have good enough sleep, that means you'll also be able to remember more and your memory will actually not fail you. Let us look at basic rules when studying. Studying is necessary, but it is very important that we study at the right time, the right place, and at the right conditions. So, as I said earlier, it is very important that you create a study zone. The correct attitude. This is very important while studying. Why? Because, as I mentioned earlier, you may tend to like some subjects and you tend to give it more time to study than other subjects that you actually dislike. Remember, you are being examined for all the subjects, so you need to balance, and balancing means you need to have the correct attitude towards all the subjects that you have to study. You need to be smart. SMART here is an acronym that I wish to discuss each letter as it stands. S, M, A, R, and T. The first one is to be specific. While you are studying, after setting up your study timetable, remember you need to be specific. That means you don't need to study literature for 30 minutes or 1 hour. Instead, you need to be specific. Revise, let's say 2 poems, read notes on them 3 times. You will have been specific while you are studying. The next point to do is to actually measure your progress. Now, you need to set up your target. You need to set up your target so that you can actually be able to measure your progress. How far have you been able to learn and retain? Remember, studying means learning, and that new information you need to use it. So how much have you studied and how much have you been able to retain? That means you also need to measure your progress by doing some exercises, some questions that will actually be able to answer and see whether you have actually gotten the correct answers. You need to be active. As you read, as I said earlier, you actually need to take notes. So be active. Work with a pen and a paper. Make sure you write the key points that you have actually studied and make some points in terms of acronyms. Acronyms will actually be able to help you remember these points and what they mean to you. The next point is to be realistic. Being realistic means set yourself targets or goals that you can actually achieve. If you are an average student, let's say getting C or C plus in mathematics or biology, make sure you set realistic target of, let's say, a B instead of an A. A B is easily achievable than an A, and that is the only way you can actually gradually progress towards achieving your target first before surpassing that particular target. The last item here is time. Time is precious. It is very important that we utilize our time well, study appropriately, and work backwards from the deadline. As you set your time well, remember you have very few days or hours left before your final examination. Other study tricks. Remember to read through something small just before going to bed. Most of the time, you read something and you'll actually remember it the first thing you wake up in the morning. Try and explain what you have learned to others. Now, later on, I will explain how explaining to others or teaching to others can actually help you. You will actually remember more while teaching others than if you just read on your own and just keep it to yourself. Avoid cramming. Remember to read well and tackle a subject in smaller portions over time. That way you will actually be able to remember more than just studying so much at a very short period of time. If you are tired, ensure you take a quick shower before you go back to study. Make sure you take necessary breaks in between your sessions. If you have a 2-hour study session, make sure you split into two, 1 hour per session, but have a small break in between these two sessions. Remember to reward yourself. If you have taken a test and you surpassed the target, reward yourself, but stay away from TV or phones. Eat healthy. Healthy food is necessary for your body and mind. Have a balanced life. Remember to study, but also have some time to exercise and have fun. What is to study? Is it getting an A? That is not necessary. As long as you are able to study regularly and consistently, then you should be able to attain a good grade. A good grade is not necessarily attaining an A. If you are able to move from a D to a C or a C to a B, then you have actually done well. So better study so that you can actually progress gradually and attain a better grade, not necessarily having an A. Having looked at the basic rules of studying, I want to share two things. The first one is the learning pyramid. This pyramid has different levels of students' retention and different methods of learning. The first part here, the topmost part of the pyramid that is shaded purple, is 5%. That means if we attend our lectures, then we are able to retain 5% of what we have learned. If we do reading on our own, then the average student retains about 10% of what you have learned through reading. The next part is audiovisual. Some session may be given to you on audio at the same time you visualize, like for instance, experiments or learning on e-learning platforms. So such a particular learning, the retention ability is actually at 20%. Sometimes we do demonstrations. If a lecturer or a teacher demonstrates, like for instance, demonstrates a certain practice in class in terms of experiments, then the student can actually retain up to 30% of what they have learned. If students form discussion groups and discuss in terms of studying, then it means they are able to retain 50% of what they have discussed in that particular session. Now, it is very important that you actually retain more by practicing. While practicing, you tend to retain a larger percentage of 75%. That is why we do practice of mathematics. That is why we do practice by doing practice or exercises or assignments given to us. But remember, when you teach others, you actually retain more as a student. That means you retain almost 100%, that is at 90%. So this is a pyramid that shows how an average student actually retains by practicing or doing all these strategies of studying. Remember, this is scientifically proven, and the source of this information is the National Training Laboratories in Bethel, Maine. The next thing I wish to share is what we refer to as the forgetting curve. The forgetting curve is interesting, and it shows the relationship between what we learn and remember and the days as they pass if we revise or we don't revise. If you look at this particular graph here, we have two graphs. We have the red graph and the blue graph. So I want us to look at first the red graph. Here we are. If we learn something here at day 1 and we are taught everything, let's say a specific topic, that particular topic, after the first day of our learning, we tend to remember 80%. Look at that. So 80% of what we have learned in day one. But as the days go back and we don't do any revision, let's look at day 10, we tend to remember about 50% of what we have learned. Yet, after 20 days of what we have learned and we don't do any reviews or any revision, then it means our retention ability, or what we can remember from what we studied, reduces even further to 35%. And if you look after 90 days of what we have learned and what we can remember barely reaches 20%. So it is very important that we actually do reviews and revision of what we have done regularly and consistently. Look at the blue graph. The blue graph actually shows somebody who actually does reviews of that particular session that they have studied. If we have done the first review within the first 10 days, then we still retain our 80%. The second review within 20 to 30 days, let's say on the 25th day, we forget, yes, but remember we are humans, we forget, yes, but we still retain a higher percentage than compared to somebody who has not done any review. The second review here shows almost 75% retention, or what student remembers from what they have learned. And the curve does not look steep, as the third review also is being done within the next 2 months, that is 60 days, and retention is still above 60%. So if you look at the difference between those who actually do reviews and those who do not do reviews, the difference of what they remember is close or greater than 50%. So it is very important that we learn to understand the importance of reviews and to consistently review our work regularly and consistently. In our next sessions, we should be able to cover the following topics, and I hope this video has been useful to you. If you need to ask any question, please drop me an email or send me a WhatsApp message. I will be able to guide you through this particular session and clarify any question that you may have. Thank you for watching this video, and if you have not subscribed to my channel, please do so that you can be able to receive alerts from my next video uploads. Thank you.